Alright, I'm starting today with Ikigai, which is a very famous book and incorporates the values of Japanese culture as well as the ideas of very famous and researched and well known philosophers towards the art of leading a long and happy life. I'm starting today with chapter 4, Find Flow in Everything You Do. Going with the flow. Now, there's this famous quote by Aristotle which says that you are what you do, right? We are what we repeatedly do. Now, he also further goes on to say that excellence then is not an act but a habit. Now, a lot of us, including me, and the reason for or the purpose for making this video is because there's a lot of distractions that surround us. Technological distractions, or it might be people, or it might be doing activities that we do just for the sake of doing, or it might be an addiction. So, while we are indulged in doing unproductive activities or activities which we feel aren't adding to our cause, when we repeatedly do it, we become associated with the activity. So the first step has to be breaking out of that cycle. Now, breaking out of an addiction or an activity or a continuous bad habit is not something that you can do or master in one day. एक दिन में हासिल नहीं कर सकते. So rather, it takes a lot of time for doing, and that is not the subject of this video. The first point to be discussed about in this chapter 4, which is roughly around 30 pages, is flow. Now, what is flow? Now, there's an example given in this book which talks about skiing. Imagine you're skiing down a slope. This is exactly, I'm paraphrasing this from Ikigai. So, imagine you're going down a slope, right? And then the book says that there's snow flowing around you like white sand. You're completely immersed skiing down the slope. You have your skis, and unfortunately in Chennai it doesn't snow. But if you have seen any anime or any videos related to skiing, you know that they hold two skis and then there's this support board and then they go down or ski down the slope. You're completely immersed in that. Now, one reason is because some people find spirituality or they find peace associated with that activity. And the second reason why you should be completely immersed is that there's a huge chance that if you don't focus and if you tumble down, you can break your neck, you can break your spinal cord, or you can break other parts of your body. But nevertheless, this simple activity, or complex for some, such as skiing, is an enjoyable one. But at the same time, it requires immense amount of focus. That is what a specific part or a facet of Ikigai talks about, which is going with the flow. Now, what is flow? Flow is this specific mindset. It is this mindset of being completely immersed on doing an activity that we like. For example, let us say I accept this bad habit that I earlier, although I'm trying to quit now, watch a lot of YouTube shorts. So I scroll down and practically you can count the amount of meters or kilometers I've just moved by scrolling the phone or scrolling on the screen of the phone. So it is one bad activity that I have, but whenever I'm doing it, I get this small dopamine, small bad pleasure that makes me want to do it continuously for hours. So that, although not in a good sense, is me being in a flow, being in a state where I'm completely immersed in doing an activity. But let us say a person who's studying hard, say for 6-7 hours continuously a day, he or she, they're in a flow. They're in a state of mind when they're completely immersed in doing that activity. Now that is called as flow. Now, as I said earlier, there are different distractions that we are surrounded with. So it is very impossible for people nowadays to find an activity in which they can lock in or get into their flow. Now, coming to the part where it becomes tough. For example, let us say a school-going student might find the process of studying or sitting for long hours and studying be very difficult. And as Einstein's one of his favorite quotes was that if you keep your hand on a hot stove for a minute, it feels like an hour. But if you sit next to a pretty girl, and talk for an hour, it feels like a minute. So, this entire flow or state of mind is relative to each other. That is, you might like an activity and you might like, to keep doing that, but you're unable to do it. That is distraction. That keeps you away from that, flow or state of mind. So, when you like that activity, at some point or the other, you'll have to start to immerse yourself in that, and you have to start to get yourself into that flow, into that state of mind where you're completely immersed. But sometimes when you find an activity, like, say keeping your hand on a hot stove, it is very difficult because it is something that is beyond our physical or mental capabilities. So we find that activity to be difficult. But Ikigai, it talks about ways in which you can bring yourself or contemplate, or even, just think about not doing the activity, just thinking about how do I, you know, proceed towards doing this activity. That is what this specific part or this specific chapter, Find Flow in Everything You Do, in Ikigai talks about. So this is the introduction. The next topic is power of flow. Now there is this one European philosopher, or I can say psychologist. His name is Mihaly, or Mihaly, if I'm not wrong. I think that is Eastern European. He talks about being completely immersed into what we're doing. Now, he's the person who coined the term flow. And also, there is an indirect reference, in one of Bruce Lee's quotes, which is, be water, my friend. He says that you have to be in a flow, like water. Water does not stop. If you're fast enough, water can cut through huge rocks, right? So we have to be completely immersed in what we do. And just a disclaimer, I am not any representation of an ideal person who has a specific flow where I study for 6-7 hours a day, which I'm supposed to do. Although I like doing it, I'm distracted obviously. But nevertheless, there is no magic recipe for finding happiness, for living according to your Ikigai. Now, what is Ikigai? Ikigai, although the major definition of Ikigai is given in a different chapter, a small definition of Ikigai would be to find happiness or to find purpose in what you do every day and do it every day, right? So it is somewhat of doing something which makes you happy and making it a routine. Although I'm not completely aware of the topic because I haven't read that topic or that chapter earlier, but I'll do a reading of it soon enough if time permits. Now, Mihaly says that there is a need to have an optimal experience. An optimal experience as in you're completely immersed in only doing that. So in order to achieve this optimal experience, we have to focus on increasing time we spend on activities that bring us to the state of flow. Let us say, for me, a JE aspirant, or let us say, let's cut JE or examination or competitiveness out of this video. Let us talk about an average person. For a person, say working in the IT industry, he or she has to be in that optimal experience, or he or she has to be in that flow for coding or for programming or for developing a website for 5, 6, 7 hours continuously to complete their deadlines. So he or she, an ideal person, would try to do activities that brings him or her towards that goal, right? For example, let us say if you want to study but you're feeling a bit distracted, you can go out for a walk for say 10 to 15 minutes, come back, take a breath of fresh air, have some warm water or tea, and you can start your activities. So this is what Mihaly says is the best way to get into that flow. For example, making these videos or making these audio visuals or something like that. Okay, but let us say making these videos, if you're watching this video, helps me to get into that flow as number one, I reflect upon what I've spoken, right? Let us say I'm speaking on that and I reflect upon it. Okay, I'm speaking, I'm supposed to be doing this. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to preach. I'm not trying to preach exactly. I'm trying to spread the word. But for people to listen to me spreading the word, it is important that first I, make that part of a routine so that other people will have the trust that, okay, fine, he's talking something and that's working out for him. Maybe I should try that. And the second is because I don't want to get bullied by my school friends. Now going to school, they'll be like, oh, you're talking the talk, but you're not walking the walk, right? So this is why making these videos is an activity that brings me closer towards my optimal experience. Now, the distractions are a huge part. They are the huge roadblock that prevent us from getting into this optimal experience. Now, the book states it might be abusing drugs or alcohol, eating too much, that's something I have to look upon, or stuffing ourselves with chocolate in front of TV. So, Mihaly has his own book, Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience, where he states that flow is a state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience itself is so enjoyable that people will do it at a great cost for the sheer sake of doing it. Now, there's a lot of paragraphs below, but to put all these paragraphs or bits of information into a small one crisp line, it would be that we need to have this flow. We need to have this flow because it has a power, that optimal experience that helps us allow to advance to our final goal for the time period. That is what is said. And also, there is no huge mind block. Now, a person in New York or a person in Tokyo, they both function the same way. They speak different languages, belong to different races, might eat the different foods, but they belong to the same, you know, constraints, but with different elements, which prevent them from doing their goals. So, Mihaly also had done some research, stated that, you know, individuals of all ages and cultures reach the state of flow in the same way. Now, how can you or how can someone logically explain that? There is one simple explanation which I believe has to be the one, is purely based off of the fact that we all are humans. We all have a functioning brain. We all have the same skin in different colors and textures. We have the same four limbs, two pairs of limbs, two hands, two legs, and we have facial hair and we have nice hair. But again, the basic point has to be humanity. That is why it is important to understand that you are literally the same compared to a person who's, say, living in California. But what happens to our mind in that state? Why am I yapping about it? Talking about flow or talking about state? Alright. Now, what happens to our mind when we are in that state, that optimal experience? Although, let us take this as a journey towards reaching or towards involving or incorporating Ikigai within our lives. Right? Simple statement, Ikigai is within ourselves. Each person, say, is a starter pack who comes with Ikigai, right? Now, before going or progressing or taking steps towards that journey of Ikigai or reaching and incorporating Ikigai within our lives, let us understand what happens in this state of optimal experience, as I've been talking about for the past 30 minutes and 20 seconds. Now, when we flow, right, just clear your minds out, clear your tables. I can't do that because I have a lot of books. Clear your table, clear your minds out, go to a safe space where you feel like, okay, there's no one that's going to be disturbing me, or there's not going to be any distractions here. Now listen, when we flow, we are focused on a concrete task without any distractions. Our mind is in order. The opposite occurs when we try to do something while our mind is on other things. Alright, so sounds a bit tough for this generation, which includes myself as well, because of the huge amount of brain rot content available. But nevertheless, when we are in a flow, we are focused in a concrete task. What does that mean? Let us say I have achieved the flow. Or let us say, I'll take an example here. I have some boiling hot water here. Now, if I'm not focused on drinking that water properly or pouring that water properly into this mug, which is right here, it is going to cause a lot of damage. My book, which I bought just now, might get wet and I might get a handful from my parents. Or number two, I might just pour it on myself, which can cause heat boils and burns here. Or number three, it's gonna make my desk messy. Although I like messy. Okay, that's a bad joke. But nevertheless, even simple activities require us to get into that flow. This is one way of incorporating ourselves within that system of attaining flow. That is to find flow or to completely immerse ourselves into activities. The seven conditions for achieving flow. Now, as I had said before, it is very difficult for a starter or a beginner to achieve that specific state of mind or flow. Now, there are seven conditions given in the book, which is knowing what to do, knowing how to do it, knowing how well you are doing, knowing where to go, perceiving significant challenges, perceiving significant skills, and being free from distractions. Now, there is an explanation for each and every part of these seven steps given, but let us take it one step at a time. Now, the first strategy given apart from these seven steps is to choose a difficult task. Now, okay, fine. We've come up to the mind that I want to involve myself in a particular activity. I want to involve myself and I want to be completely immersed in that particular activity. Now, how do I do it? Should I do an easy task or should I take the most Herculean task ever and bring it on my table? Let us say, in terms of a JE aspirant's point of view, should I start with sets, relations, and functions NCRT, or should I go directly to permutation, combination, or a binomial theorem? Some people might find it easy, they are absolute freaks. Or should I take the most toughest rotation question, which is completely out of subject? But should I take a very tough question and try attempting it on my own? I mean, there's no, you know, nothing wrong in attempting it. There is a specific solution given for this problem. Which of the extrema should I choose and bring it on my table? Now, Schaffer's model, Schaffer is the person who wrote those seven conditions, encourages us to take on tasks that we have a chance of completing but are slightly outside our comfort zone. Let us say your comfort zone, or from my perspective, my comfort zone would be solving, say, probably at the max, some mains level questions from calculus if it's my comfort zone. Hypothetically, not that I'm bragging about that I can solve mains questions from calculus, which I completely can't, right? So that is my comfort zone, or that is my ceiling. So it's saying that, not my ceiling, I'm sorry, that is my comfort zone, right? So it is saying, or Schaffer, Owen Schaffer of DePaul University, he suggests that you just come a bit above your comfort zone. That is, try to solve a lot of questions from mains archive regarding the topic calculus. Or let us say, from a dancer's perspective, let us say you're doing a set of routines. Now add another routine which you've been finding it to be a bit difficult and try incorporating it. Try first attempt. Now, every task, sport, or job has a set of rules, and we need a set of skills to follow them. If the rules for completing a task or achieving a purpose are too basic or relative to our skill set, we will likely get bored. That is the reason why he says, don't go to this extrema. Don't go to sets, relations, and functions in CRT, because at the end of the day, if you just keep doing that, you won't be able to progress. If, on the other hand, we assign ourselves to a task that is too difficult, we won't have the skills to complete it and we will almost certainly give up. That also does not mean that you go out straight 2016 paper, grab all the questions and come here and start trying to solve them. No, that is completely wrong. The idea, or the ideal way, is to find a middle path, something aligned with our own abilities, but just a bit of stretch, so we experience it as a challenge. He says, challenge yourself. Don't go to the extrema. Come to a middle point where it is not too comfortable, but at the same time, it is a challenge. It poses a challenge towards yourself. Now, this is what Ernest Hemingway meant, that sometimes I can write better than I can. That is something that is needed, that we need to incorporate within our lives. It has to be taking up a challenge, always be ready to take up a challenge, or it is to bring that mindset where we feel like I can always try for a step or two steps above. Now, this has to be in such a way that you can constantly improve as well. You don't get demotivated. We want to see challenges through to the end because we feel the enjoyment of pushing ourselves and achieving it. Bertrand Russell expressed a similar idea when he said to be able to concentrate for a considerable amount of time is essential to difficult achievement. Is essential to difficult achievement. That's correct. Now, there are certain cases or examples or illustrations given, but again, I've explained them all. Even doing something simple as reading means following certain rules or having certain abilities and knowledge. If we set out to read a book on quantum mechanics for specialists in physics without being specialists in physics ourselves, we'll probably give up after a few minutes, and that's why we need to choose the middle ground. And this is what is said in strategy 1. So there's easy, and then there's beyond our abilities, and then there's challenging. So there are three brackets of activities: easy activities, there's challenging, and then there's beyond our ability. So easy activities lead to boredom, challenging activities lead to this flow. Why? Because we set ourselves or set our mind towards completing that specific goal. And beyond our abilities leads to anxiety, leads to demotivation, and leads to an interest in that particular field of activity. Now, that is strategy 1, and that is the entirety for this video on chapter 4. Although it will take a good amount of time, I'll try to keep posting whenever I have the time or if time permits, because I have my exams going on and JE is just 4 months away. But this is the right time to think everything with a calm mind, to be able to take the stress and to push forward. That's Project ID. Thank you so much.